What's up, everybody? Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Titletown Talk. I'm your host, Ian Ewing. On today's episode, we're going to preview the Cardinals game this weekend. I will say on the jump here, my notes are a little bit less complete than normal, so I'm going to be going a bit more off the cuff in this one, so I will try to make it fast and efficient for you guys. The Cardinals are coming off of a loss to the current number one seed in the AFC, the Indianapolis Colts, 31-27. Yes, the Indianapolis Colts are the number one seed in the AFC. It's wild. The Patriots are in the playoff picture over there. The Ravens are 1-5. It's been a wild year so far. The Cardinals, however, they've lost 4 in a row after starting the season out 2-0. So again, they started 2-0. I believe they beat the 49ers they beat the Panthers and Saints. So they had like a, easy couple of games at the beginning. But since that, they've lost 4 in a row by a combined 9 points, which is crazy. And 4 of those 9 points came last week, by the way. So yes, the Cardinals, they're sitting at 2-4. I do think they're a little bit better than the record would indicate. They did take that Colts team last week down to the wire despite missing Kyler Murray. In that game, they outgained the Colts 405 to 368. They converted 9 out of 14 on third down, and they held the ball for 32 minutes. So again, that Colts team is good. Now, is that Colts team as good as the Packers? No. Is that Colts team running out there with a great defense? No. But I thought they played really, really admirably in that game after losing one of the most crazy, heartbreaking games I've ever seen against the Titans a few weeks back. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, just YouTube search Cardinals-Titans 2025, and that game was one of the worst games I've ever seen from a team giving up the lead standpoint. So last week, Jacoby Brissett started for them due to Kyler Murray's Liz Frank injury. I think it's what he has. I thought that Jacoby Brissett played pretty well. He actually finished with 320 yards passing, and they actually moved the ball pretty well in that game. Again, I do think the Colts defense is pretty inferior, at least to the Packers. But and some of that did come in sort of a late comeback effort. But, it just shows you they can be really productive still. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to play in this game. If he does, I like their chances a bit more. So we're going to kind of operate under the assumption he's not playing on this podcast. So if he does, some of this will be null and void. So I apologize in advance. The reason I don't think he's playing, I think it was yesterday, we found out that he wasn't doing 11 on 11 in practice. He was throwing to their practice squad guys. Here's why I don't think he's going to play. That injury has a risk of re-injury. It could make it a lot worse if he goes out there too early. And the Cardinals have a bye next week. So he could essentially get 2 weeks off and only miss one game just by sitting out this week. I just don't think that it makes any sense to start him. Before we get into actual offense versus defense, I want to just add one point. The Cardinals' schedule is about to get really, really hard after their bye week. So if they do lose this game, I think it's going to drastically change the outlook of their season. I don't think this is a playoff team. There were a lot of people who thought they might be coming into the season. I was not one of them. But they're going to be desperate in this one for a win. There's no question about it. Desperate teams that need a win as badly as the Cardinals do that are at home, it can be scary, right? So I hope the Packers mean what they mean. Or mean what they say when they say they won't be looking ahead to next week. Obviously, next week is that Steelers game that everyone's been looking forward to. Aaron Rodgers versus the Packers and blah, blah, blah. So if the Packers don't show up 100% ready to rock in this game, this is a game that you could easily lose, even with Brissett at quarterback. I was actually watching, just a quick side note, the Mina Kimes show. And if you guys haven't watched the Mina Kimes show, she is phenomenal. I think I'm one of her biggest fans out there. She has a great show. She even covers Love is Blind, which I love also, so pretty funny. She thinks that Jacoby Brissett's actually a better fit for this Cardinals offense than Kyler himself, which is interesting take. So I think we could see some good production again from Jacoby Brissett in this one. But with that said, the Packers can't take this lightly. The Cardinals do have a lot of good players. So let's start with the Cardinals offense and the Packers approach on defense. So let's start with their top 5 players. So right now, their top graded player from PFF is Trey McBride, their tight end. He's got a 78 grade. He's probably their scariest weapon on offense over there. We'll talk about him in a minute. Marvin Harrison Jr. gets all the headlines. His dad was a Hall of Fame receiver. But Trey McBride is a top 5 tight end in the NFL right now. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but it's mismatch city right now. Trey McBride on Quay Walker, for example. I do think the Cardinals are going to try to feed him. And I don't want to say spray him the ball, but like they're going to give it to him a lot in this game. Their number 2 graded player is actually Paris Johnson Jr., their tackle from Ohio State from a few years back. He has a 77.5 grade so far this season, but he's got an 81 grade in pass protection. So whoever's rushing on his side, I don't think is going to have a lot of success. Even Micah, I think, should be rushing their weaker player on the other side, which is, let me check who it is, Jonah Williams, and he's graded poorly, by the way. So Kyler Murray is their 3rd graded player at 72.1. He's got a 69 passing grade, so kind of middle of the pack. But Jacoby Brissett last week, his grade was in the mid-70s. So again, I kind of made the point earlier, he played pretty well in that game. Number 4 is their center, Froholt. I do not know how to say his first name, Hajalti Froholt. Hopefully we can, I probably butchered the hell out of that, but he's got a 68.8 grade. Definitely more of a run blocking guy versus a pass blocking guy, but their interior is definitely the weaker side on their offensive line. So the weaker part, sorry. Number 5 is Marvin Harrison Jr. with a 65.5 grade. So again, their top grade on offense is 78. Their 5th is 65. So again, we're looking at a pretty average offense overall. Despite having some weapons, I'm not super afraid. If Kyler's playing, he is a number 1 priority, particularly his legs. Last season, they played the Cardinals, and the Packers blew out the Cardinals. Let's be clear on that. That was one of the most dominant games of the year for the Packers last year, and at the time, it looked like a pretty good win. We went into that game thinking, oh, Kyler's going to run all over the Packers again like he did before. They actually bottled them up really, really well. If you guys watch the highlights of that game, if you don't remember, Evan Williams played out of his mind in that game. That was kind of his coming out party last year. So I will say, I do think if Kyler plays, which I doubt, his legs are more scary than his arm. But I'll kind of wrap this in a bow at the end. He has an MVP level game in him maybe once or twice every season, where you're just like, God, how is this guy not like an MVP in this league, right? So if that happens in this game, we've already seen that from Dak this year, where quarterback plays out of his mind against the Packers, despite the Packers not really doing anything too wrong. There's always a chance that could happen with Kyler. So got to watch him, obviously. Trey McBride is their biggest threat, in my opinion. He's a phenomenal tight end. If he were on a really good team, he'd be getting a lot. If he was on the 49ers or the Eagles or whatever, right, he'd be getting so much buzz. So, I don't want to overstate his impact. Like, again, he's not George Pickens. He's not, Jamar Chase or anything like that. But this guy is very, 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 and when I say underrated, I mean very underrated. He's one of the few tight ends in the league I would take over Tucker Kraft. Really good route runner, phenomenal hands. He's good after the catch. And if the Cardinals were smart, they would probably feature him in this game. And we'll talk about his impact on 3rd down here in a minute. Then you got Marvin Harrison Jr. So again, I think he has been a pretty big disappointment in the NFL so far. Last year in the draft, there was a lot of debate between, would you pick Malik Neighbors or would you pick Marvin Harrison Jr.? Harrison went before Neighbors. I personally like Neighbors better, but I also really like Marvin Harrison Jr. So one of the reasons why there was sort of that debate was he didn't really test in the combine. He never really showed like top end speed and wiggle, but he's got great hands. He wins with physicality at the catch point. And, again, I said Trey McBride's probably the one I'm worried about most, but again, we saw in the game against George Pickens, the Packers don't do great against guys who have really good ball skills. People that win at the catch point. So, by the way, it makes me nervous for A.J. Brown later in the season. But ultimately, I'm not super worried about Marvin. And there's also a chance he doesn't play in this game. He left last week's game with a concussion. He never came back. He's been limited this week in practice. He has not cleared concussion protocol yet as of Friday morning at 8 o'clock. So I do think there's a chance he doesn't play this game, but we shall see. Paris Johnson Jr., by far their best offensive lineman. I think he's really, really good. They drafted him in round 1 back in 2023. He was probably the best lineman in that draft, I would say, based on what a lot of people thought. I think he ended up going like 12th overall. That was the year where the Cardinals traded their first-round pick to the Texans, and they drafted Will Anderson. So, by most metrics, he's the only good offensive lineman on this team. They just had a really hard time building a good offensive line against in front of Kyler. 2021 was the year that the Cardinals started out like 8-0, and then the Packers went in there and beat them with the Rasul Douglas pick, which was fun because I was living in Arizona at the time and I got to gloat at work. But I digress. They have a pretty weak offensive line overall, and Paris Johnson Jr. is their only good guy there. Their running game has been pretty bad this year too. Obviously, they had James Conner coming into the season, and I believe they gave him a contract extension, and he is out the rest of the year with an injury. I don't remember what injury it was. I think it was ACL. So they have Bam Knight and Michael Carter at running back. Both of them are okay running backs. They're guys who you have to block everything well for them to be successful. They're not like Josh Jacobs where, you can make a 5-yard run out of a negative 2-yard run, right? Since they've lost James Conner, they just have not run the ball very effectively. And they just haven't been able to really set up play action. That offense that they have is predicated on, similar to other Shanahan offenses, right? Motion, running the ball, all that stuff. They just haven't been able to do that to any, strong degree this year. Neither of these guys are a major threat. So on defense, key number 1, stop Trey McBride. I already talked about it. AZ's plan, they're going to come into the game and they're going to see what the Cowboys did and what the Bengals did in the second half of the games, right, against the Packers. Whether it's Kyler or Brissett, they're going to get the ball out quick and then have a guy to catch it, dink and dunk you, paper cut you to death, whatever phrase you want to use. And again, the biggest mismatch in this game is Trey McBride against the linebackers on the Packers. Everything else is manageable. Again, Marvin Harrison Jr., not great against the catch. Neither is Michael Wilson. So I do think on top of that, Hafley saw what happened against the Bengals, which I will just say really quick, that Bengals loss last week after seeing what they did to the Steelers, it looks a lot better. The Bengals looked really, really good last night. And there were a lot of people who thought the Steelers were a top 3 team in the league, by the way. So anyway, the 2 receivers they have, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, they are not George Pickens. They are not Jamar Chase. You guys get the point. I don't think they're going to have the same success as they did the last few weeks. I think Hafley's going to figure that out. But if there's been one position that's beaten the Packers on defense this year and in years past, it's been tight ends. So I think Trey McBride, again, as good as he is, keep him out of the middle of the field, make Brissett and Kyler throw to the sidelines to McBride. Don't let him beat you in the middle of the field. Key number 2, get off the field in third down. To build on the Trey McBride point, the Cardinals convert third downs at a pretty high rate. It's 43% this year. And Trey McBride himself has 20 first down conversions this season. So that's about 3 a game if you do the math on it. So he's got the most first down conversions in the league at tight end. He's top 10 overall. And all the guys in front of him are all the big stars in the league. Puka, all the other guys. So in this game, you got to make it 3rd and 6 plus. If you have Kyler, obviously the element of his legs comes into the picture. But again, none of these receivers are Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, George Pickens. You can get up and press these guys. You can man up on them. I don't think you need to give them a bunch of space. And if they do catch the ball short of the first down, come up and hit them. Come up and tackle them. Strength versus strength. The Packers defense is really, really good on third down, the best team in the league. So I do have a faith that the Packers will have the advantage, but you cannot sleep on their ability on third down, especially with Trey McBride. Key number 3, Micah's breakout game. I cannot stress to you guys enough how well Micah Parsons has played this season. There have been a lot of what I would say idiot Cowboy fans, Bears fans that love Josh Sweat or Montez Sweat for whatever reason that are talking about Micah's lack of sacks, which I call that Madden brain. In other words, using prehistoric stats to determine if a player is good or not. If you ask any NFL coach, any NFL expert, all the people that are being paid millions and millions of dollars to cover the NFL or coach in the NFL, they all say that pressures matter more than sacks. So constant disruption of the quarterback is greater than finishing a play one time a game. You're only going to have so many sacks in a season, right? Even the great pass rushers only get so many sacks, right? The NFL record is, I think, 22 or something like that, 24, something like that. So if there's 16 games in a season, 17 games, that's about a sack and a half a game. So the average sack loses about 10 yards. So you're essentially only costing a team 10 yards a game just by getting a sack. Now, if you get a sack and you have 10 pressures, that's great. If you have 6+ pressures in a game, you don't have any sacks, you still disrupted the quarterback 6 times. And if you look at the splits and stats, it's very easy to see. Quarterbacks who are under pressure perform way worse than ones who aren't. And the splits in the stats are staggering in my opinion. So again, I'll take pressures over sacks any day of the week. And currently, Micah Parsons leads the league in pressures. And again, if you don't believe me, that's fine. No offense taken, but he's second or third in the NFL in all the sports books for Defensive Player of the Year so far. So again, whether you agree with me or not, the people are voting. They all think he's worth it. That being said, I want him to have one of those 2-3 sack games in this one. I think he's pretty heated up after what I would consider his weakest showing of the season last week in Cincy. Especially hearing his grievances about holding calls that he expressed yesterday. If you guys haven't seen it too, LaFleur was asked about how many times Mike is being held per game, and it's bad. There were 3 horrific ones against Dallas. There were 2 other bad ones against Cincinnati. These aren't there's holding on every play, right? These are egregiously bad, where he's getting tackled, choked. It's pretty wild that some of these aren't being called. So I think Micah has a statement game in this one. I bet he gets pressure on Brissett a ton. They don't have that superstar wide receiver that they can throw too quick. They don't have a big running game. I think the Cardinals, they're going to try to game plan against taking Micah away. And I still think he's going to win anyway. But if he's not, somebody else has to step up. LVN's going to be out. There's a chance Wyatt plays this week. I don't think he does. I think it's another week before he plays. But somebody else needs to step up there. So final thoughts on the Cardinals offense. This is a desperate team. I think it's going to be Brissett that starts. I just don't have a lot of confidence that the Cardinals can be the team that exposes the Packers defense like crazy. It took a valiant effort from 2 elite players on the Cowboys for it to happen in week 4. That's the only game this season where the Packers have given up more than 18 points. So the Cardinals have a fun offense. I like their coordinator. Don't remember his name. He's done a good job of scheming stuff up, but they don't create a lot of big plays. They're bottom 5 in the NFL in explosive play rate. And the only way teams have beaten the Packers is, to get the ball out quick, use rhythm and timing and all that. The Cardinals offense is 30th in offensive success rate. So again, getting the ball out quick, getting it to the guy they need to get it to, that success rate, they're 30th in that regard. So I don't think, unless we see a totally different version of this Packers defense, the Cardinals not going to be able to move the ball consistently in this one, in my opinion. I think we see a return of the Packers defense that we saw in weeks 1 through 3. I really do. We saw flashes of it against Cincy. We saw flashes of it the first half of Dallas. I think the Cardinals maybe get to 17 in this game. That'd be the highest I could see. So let's flip it over to the Cardinals defense. I like this defense a lot, actually. They got a strong core of guys that they can build around. I don't think that they're a serious threat in 2025, but I think 2 years from now, they could be a really good defense. So their top 5 PFF grades, rookie Will Johnson at cornerback. You guys remember, if you go back and listen to my cornerback preview, I was very high on Will Johnson in the draft, and they ended up getting him in the 2nd round, which, was odd. When they picked Golden, I was ecstatic, but I thought there was a good chance they would pick Will Johnson. As they showed us in the draft, they clearly think their corners are better than we think their corners are. The reason that Will Johnson fell was some sort of degenerative knee issue. I think that's what it was. That's why he fell in the draft. But that injury risk is not in 2025, right? It's something that's going to maybe make his career shorter. And I get why a team would not take that person in the 1st round, right? Maybe they only have a 5-year career and that's all you got from your 1st round pick, right? But I think he's been really, really good this season. 79 grade. I think he has top 5 corner in the NFL potential this season or in his career. Josh Sweat is their number 2 player. I love him. You guys know. He got paid this season. And I will say the Eagles clearly miss him this year. Their pass rush has not been good. Josh Sweat was a big piece of that last year. He's at 21 pressures in 6 games, so it's not great, right? He's got a 76 pass rush grade. It's 80 in true pass sets, but his win rate is only 18. So, Micah's is 25 or 26 for comparison's sake. So again, he's above average. Excuse me. But we're not talking about some sort of demon over there, right? But I do like Josh Sweat. Number 3 is Dadrian Taylor-Demerson at safety. Loved him in the draft. Super good athlete. A little bit short for a safety in the NFL, but he's had a good sophomore season here this year, 75.1 grade. Number 4 is Calais Campbell, the grizzled old vet. I think he's 38 years old, and he's still playing really good football. Been a big fan of his for years. He's got 16 pressures this year. He's always been a pretty consistent run stuffer, and that's what he's been so far in 2025. So I like what I've seen from Calais Campbell there as well. Zaven Collins is their number 5th graded player, 73.1. Really good season from Zaven Collins. He's probably the only other guy on defense that's played well this season. Liked him in the draft about 4 years ago, but again, I'm not losing any sleep over Zaven Collins. Budda Baker is their best player on defense. He's their safety. And yes, Budda Baker is his name. To this point, he has struggled in coverage badly. He has a 39 grade in coverage. That's bad. Again, 60's average, so just do the math. 39 is not good. He's been good against the run his whole career. He's been good this season, too, against the run. He's a good blitzer. They do send him a lot on blitzes. But from a coverage standpoint, you can pick on him all day long. The other massive hole on defense is cornerback Max Melton. He's been getting picked on like crazy this season. And if it sounds familiar, yes, it's Bo Melton's brother. And they now have the same number, ironically, number 16. Melton has a 44 grade on defense, which is terrible. Coverage grade 64, so, average. But this dude just can't tackle. And I think you get Matthew Golden on him, you get Romeo, any of the Packers receivers, they're all good after the catch. Melton's a terrible tackler, so I think you could exploit that in the game. Their slot corner is Keitrell Clark, 47 grade from him, 57 in coverage, so another bad player in the secondary there. So again, Will Johnson's good. That's about it. So that brings me to key number 1 on offense. Take advantage of the secondary deep. The Cardinals are 21st in the NFL in explosive play rate allowed. So in other words, they give up a lot of big plays. I do think Christian Watson will debut this weekend and he will play on a pitch count. So if I'm the Packers, I test him deep, just like they did last year with Watson. Obviously, we've seen Golden can win deep. I think his first breakout game happened last week. I think they're going to take some more shots to him in this game. I do think the Cardinals, they're going to try to sell out to stop Josh Jacobs early. That's been the game plan from basically every team that they've played this year. Against the Bengals, they literally went too high in the second half of that game. So the Packers were basically like, well, we got to run the ball. So, and they did. They ran it successfully. So you just played off the safeties, and that's what NFL teams do. If they got too high, they're trying to take the deep play away. Run the ball then. If they have single high, that means they're trying to stop the run. Throw the ball. So it doesn't need to be much more complicated than that. So key number 2 is use run early and use play action late. So the Cardinals, they are third to last, if I'm looking at this right. Yeah, third to last team in stopping the run. Their run grade from PFF is not good. The yards per carry, they give up about 4.7 per carry, but they're last in the NFL in covering running backs. So I think this might be a game where Josh Jacobs comes out of the backfield running some Texas routes or something where they get him on those linebackers. I think that's the main reason. Maybe you get Savion Williams in the backfield here as a running back, and then you get him on coverage against one of those linebackers. I think there's a lot of things you could do here. I don't think Josh Jacobs is a great receiving threat out of the backfield, but again, maybe this is the game where Savion Williams has a big catch up the sideline or something out of the backfield. So I think the Cardinals, they'll sell out early to stop the run. They'll make it tough. They'll stop it early. And then the Packers can come back with play action and start killing them. They're 22nd in the NFL at defending the middle of the field. So some of those play action throws where Jordan drops back and hits Romeo 20 yards deep in the middle of the field, I can see that happening quite a bit in this one. So key number 3, last week they finally did a really good job of stopping the opposing pass rush. Now, the Bengals put the Steelers in a blender last night. So I do think the Bengals pass rush is better than we thought. The Steelers have actually protected pretty well this season. Not good, but also not bad. So I think the Bengals pass rush, even without Trey, is pretty good, and they really did help them in check. It was the first time the whole season where the Packers played all their starters last week on the offensive line. As much as I like Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell, the other guys on the defensive line are not consistent at all. They have Darius Robinson, their rookie. I believe they picked him in the second round, liked him in the draft. They also have Jordan Birch, which if you guys remember my Edge episode, I loved him in the draft too. If you guys can't tell, I clearly like the Cardinals draft this year. So don't let this pesky front disrupt you too much. They're 28th in pressure percentage, so they're not getting a lot of pressure. Most of it's coming from Josh Sweat. So while he's been good, he's not Trey Hendrickson, he's not Aiden Hutchinson, he's certainly not Myles Garrett, so I don't think they're going to have this big blowout game from a pressure standpoint against the Packers. When they do get pressure, though, here's the funny part. When the Cardinals get pressure, they're 30th in the NFL in EPA per play, meaning they're not good when they pressure the quarterback. So I do think Jonathan Gannon, he's a good defensive mind. I like him actually quite a bit. Shane Steichen. No, Jonathan Gannon. I'm getting him mixed up. Sorry, guys. Whoever the coordinator for the Eagle was, defensive coordinator, that is the guy who is the Cardinals head coach. Why can't I remember it? That's why I need to have notes, right? So he's creative. The Cardinals have some fun. They mix up their fronts a lot. But again, I don't think it's going to be anything the Packers haven't seen. I think they're going to take advantage of it, especially from a pressure standpoint. Prediction, I think the Packers win this one fairly comfortably. This is the most confident I've been in picking a game yet this year. I think they're going to win this game comfortably. I think the defense is going to bounce back and play a full 4 quarters. I think we do see that Micah Parsons dominant game we've been looking for. I think you finally get some holding calls in this one. And I do think they're going to have another pass rusher step up. Maybe it's Rashawn Gary. Maybe it's Kingsley Enagbare. Who knows? Whoever it is, somebody's going to have to step up over there. As long as the Packers can avoid turnovers, they keep the penalties to a minimum, they're the much better team here. The Cardinals' path to victory is very singular. The only way they win comfortably is if Kyler Murray wins or plays, and that's going to mean he looks freakishly good. He has one of his MVP games where he plays out of his mind. The only thing that makes me nervous, like I said, the Cardinals are desperate, and they're playing at home. So the Cardinals will not beat the Packers. It will be another case of the Packers beating the Packers if they lose. But I don't think Kyler plays. I don't think that happens. I think we see a big game from Jordan Love in this one. I think a 3 TD performance is well within the realm of possibility. 250 yards passing, I'm going to say, in that one. Josh Jacobs, where is he going to finish? 17 carries, I think, is going to be where he ends up. I think it's because they're going to say, oh, let's run the ball early. And then they're going to figure out pretty quickly that they are going to see more success passing against that weak secondary, and then I bet they do end up passing it. I say the final score ends up being 28-17 Packers. That's my prediction. I say Cardinals get a late TD to make the score look better. I say going into the fourth quarter, it's like 28-10, and then the Cardinals make it look a little bit better late. I think the Packers have been hearing all the shit everyone's been saying and talking about how they beat the Bengals and how they tied the Cowboys and all this stuff, right? I think they take it really personal in this game, and I bet they just go off. Then they got the Steelers next week, and I cannot wait for this game. Like I said earlier, I'm ecstatic to see Rodgers versus the Packers. It's going to be a ton of fun. We will have all of that and more next week covering the game. I will be on after the game recording a recap episode. I should have it up on Monday or Tuesday, so you guys can tune into that. If you can, give it a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, download the podcast, send me some questions. I do have some questions to answer on next week's show. I will answer those. So thank you guys for sending those. And I will see you guys next week after the Packers victory over the Cardinals. And as always, go Pack, go.